analysis using Excel and SPSS, understanding ethical issues and plagiarism, compiling references and bibliographies, questionnaire design, resource design and sampling, hypothesis testing, and understanding impact factors and publication methods. And today, to sum up, we have with us our most strategic and diligent session expert, Dr. Ankita Ma'am, coordinator of Foreign Affairs at the Research Foundation of India. And she has already taken two sessions in this FDP. And today she will be presenting on conclusion and summary. So without any delay, I now invite Ankita Ma'am to please begin. Thank you.
Thank you, Neha ma'am. Thank you, Team Research Foundation of India, and welcome all the participants again in the session of this FDP training program on advanced tools and technology. So again, I'm here again to discuss about one more topic today, that is on conclusion, and it's the last day and the last topic of this particular workshop, where you have already understood lots of things about advanced tools and techniques related to research methodology and related to research paper, important parts of the research paper, where you can you would have understood about various aspects which could be included in the research paper or any part. You must have worked earlier for various things, but this particular FDP must have given you for sure that some of the insights and more things to do and how it could be done in a better way. So now, as you have already gone through various parts like related to research problem formulation, review of literature, research designing, Excel and SPSS for data analysis, questionnaire designing, hypothesis, referencing, then plagiarism and ethical issues, and how to write a good research paper. And in the last, today we are on the conclusion and the summary. So let me share my slides with you all on this particular topic. I hope my slides are visible and I'm audible to everyone.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yes. So let's talk about the topic, that is conclusion. So conclusion is everywhere. Whenever we are writing anything, any kind of work, it should be there. It should be, you know, like reflecting in the end. Without this, there is no end. So conclusion is the end, but it is not the end. It is like again starting a new thing towards a new direction. So let's talk about it today. So when it comes to format of a part of a research paper, so there are various steps in the research paper. So first one is abstract. In the first lecture of mine, when I talked about the review of literature, I talked about this as well. So abstract, introduction, review of literature, research methodology, results, finding and discussion, and the last that comes as conclusion, and after that comes the references. But as you already looking at this, that I have highlighted some part that the conclusion is not only the conclusion, it is also having some additional parts called as, one is limitations of the study, suggestions and recommendations, implications, and future research scope. So there are various parts of the research paper. So I'm going to talk about this specific part today. So five main parts: introduction, methods, results, discussion, and conclusion. So we are on the last one today. So conclusion is an opinion that you reach after thinking about something carefully. The final decision which you are making for doing something, or after doing something, what decision you have made in the last. The conclusion of a research paper is where you wrap up your ideas and leave the reader with a strong final impression. Means whatever you are doing, whatever kind of ideas you are sharing, and whatever you are having in your mind, you have already done in your research paper. But when it comes to conclusion, it's a final impression where people can see and they see towards what is the crux of this study. So it has several key goals. It restates the problem statements which is addressed in the research paper, summarizing the overall arguments or the findings, and suggest the key takeaways from your paper. So a good conclusion with wrap up with the final thoughts and main points, and combining all the pertinent, important information with an emotional appeal for an ending statement that resonates with your readers. And a good conclusion should do a few things. Again, restating the thesis, synthesizing and summarizing the main points, and making the context of your arguments clear. Basically, whenever somebody is reading the conclusion, they should have a clear impression about what did you find out in the whole work and what have you come out with. So when it comes to any engaging conclusion, so it should be very concise, and also don't just summarize, just synthesize. Means just show how your findings are connecting and contributing to the larger understanding, not just what you have done. Okay. Then when it comes to conclusion writing, so it has so many things. One is synthesizing the key points, as I have said, communicating the implications of the study, demonstrating the importance of your findings, and then developing a sense of closure of the topic and the present the final word of the arguments. Also, it also talks about the proposed course of action or suggestion for the future study or solution to the problem. So I'll be talking about this thing in detail as well. Like when it comes to conclusions, so you have to write what kind of limitations were there, how it is implication, how it is applicable in the society, how it is implicating to different vendors, to the stakeholders, to the parties which are associated, and also developing a sense of closure. Like it should look like that it is an end basically. Okay. And it should craft a strong closing statement or call to action which should be end with with basically a memorable statement which provides a sense of closure, as I have said.
Ankita ma'am,
Also sorry.
1 minute, ma'am. Bhavani Shankar sir, could you please turn off your mic and camera? Bhavani Shankar sir, please turn off your camera and mic. Yeah, Ankita ma'am, please continue.
Yeah. Also, as I have said, you have to acknowledge the limitations. It is not it is optional, but it is recommended that you should always write this so that others can learn from your study. You can briefly discuss any shortcoming if there is any. Then also any honest approach to your research if you have faced any kind of issue towards it. You can also discuss implication and the significance, and always try to summarize the key findings, the arguments. So basically there are various key elements of the conclusion, as I have said. So research problem, that summarizing, and then writing the implication, limitations, future research scope and directions, and everything else. So when it is coming to any kind of research paper or a thesis, any article you are writing, any dissertation you are making, so such kind of things which we talk about, conclude when it comes to conclusion, it should be crisp and concise as per the reader's perspective as well. Then so a conclusion is not merely a summary, it's not merely a summary, but also uh, a some but also a restatement of your research problem, and what Also, the conclusion is the final paragraph of a research paper and serves to help the reader and understand why the research should be like how the reader understand why the research should matter to them. So the conclusion is said to be ideal when it gives an interesting insights and reinforces the primary. Also, it should be end with a positive note, reinforces the primary theme of the study. Obviously it should be connected with what we started with. Okay, means it should not be very different, it should not be very to understand what exactly we were talking about and the topic is all about. Reinforces the primary theme of the study, then highlights the main arguments presented in the piece of writing. Also, it also refer back the questions, states the key points and the findings, and wind up the discussion with the final observation. It makes a strong and long lasting impression on the reader. It should never introduce new points. This point needs to be discussed that, as I have already said, where we are starting with whatever we are having in our mind, there was some idea we have started with. We have come out with the introduction, conceptual framework, objectives, hypothesis, and we are coming on the results now. After results, we are writing some finding, and now we are having the conclusion. So when we started with that note, the note which we have started with, the point we have thought about, the thing which we wanted to discuss. So conclusion should have that. It should never introduce new points. So conclusion is restatement of the problem statement, then summarizing the research paper and discussing the implication. This is main three things which are all about conclusion. So whenever you are writing the conclusion, there are so many things happen. So sometimes we write the lengthy conclusions, and because of that there might be some repetitions of the things in the paper, or might be nobody is interested in reading such a long conclusion. If you are going to disrupt the prima facie and the last thing, which is the conclusion, so ultimately it is going to ruin your basically the paper, because ultimately you are not connecting. Also, whenever we are writing any paper conclusion, so it should be very specific and concrete. Properly implications should be provided. So let's talk about do's and don'ts in the conclusion. Whenever you write any effective conclusion, how should it value and provide the significance to your research? So if we talk about do's, so make it concise and straightforward. Restate your research topic, the central point. Highlight the major outcomes. Summarize the main points. Make a connection between opening and closing statements, and provide a brief overview of your paper and address whether or not it answers your research question. So as I have already said, it should be specific, crisp, concise, smaller one, the smallest part of the study, I can say. Then restate your research topic. See, when it comes to any title which we have chosen, introduction is talking about that particular thing in detail, but whenever it comes to a conclusion, so it should be just talking about restating the research topic which you have taken. So the central point, the central idea, the highlight the major outcomes which are there, and basically uh, whatever the key highlights are there, you should mention those only. Summarizing the main points, only you have to be stuck with the main idea or main points of the study. Then make a connection between opening and closing statement, introduction and conclusion, or the title which you have selected and the conclusion. So it should have, or it should provide some connection. Then provide a brief overview of your paper. Means ultimately it is talking about whatever you have done in the whole paper. It is providing a brief summary overview of the paper, and also addressing which questions which are not answered, or which whether your conclusion has come out with the results which you were expecting. Are they in the same line or different? So basically you have to summarize the key finding and discuss the implication and importance of this study, and you have to answer like what, so what, in the highlight the practical and theoretical contribution of the work. Also, a strong conclusion is crucial for a research paper, offering a final offering a final opportunity to make an impact on the reader. So that is why it is important to highlight findings properly, writing uh, important implications, mentioning the any kind of limitations, and if you are having anything good in your mind towards the study, you can do that as well. Now, if we talk about more, that you should use some broad statements towards it when it comes to conclusion. It's not about keeping very in detail. It's like broad statements are important. Then summarize the key points and purpose of the research. As I have said, the keyword, the key point, the important point should be there and should define the the purpose of the research. Stating the significance of the results. Significance of the study and the result should be reflected. Language should be simple and understandable by everyone. It should be in the layman language, so whoever is reading it, they can understand. Also, it should tie all the threads of your paper together and reinforce the main message, and also leave the reader with a clear understanding of the value and significance of your research. So, writing the important insights of your research. Now, let's come to the conclusion. Do's, after do's we are talking about the don'ts. If we talk about the don'ts, do not include completely new information. I will focus on it again and again, that you should never introduce any new information. Conclusion is all about your study. Whatever you have find out, whatever you have gained, and whatever you have identified in your study, you have to write in the conclusion. So in short, do not introduce any new data or interpretation. Avoid the repetition. Then avoid the over generalization and exaggeration. Basically, you should never try to be generalize things, like over generalize that. It should not be a very just you have written. It should not be in that way. It should exaggerate, should not even exaggerate. Whatever you are writing should be to the point, and whatever is required. So new information, new arguments, no new evidence, nothing should be there. So basically the conclusion is for summarizing and synthesizing what is already been discussed in the body of your paper, not to introduce or fresh content for the or the any kind of analysis. So new information basically can confuse the reader and disturb the flow and coherence of the essay. So basically, again, you should not include methods, discussion and results in the conclusion, because you have already written it. So it should not be repetitive. Mention the inferences, insights, and the implications. All should be there. And avoid phrases as in summary or in conclusion, or we can see. You should not start with this with like this way. So do not repeat the introduction or body of the paragraphs. and do not use very generic or cliche concluding phrases where you are just writing, as I have said, in conclusion, just to sum up, in summary. They feel they are redundant, and they detract from the professionalism, and they impact your any writing work. So let the structure and the content of your conclusion naturally signal its purpose of the reader. So it's simply, when it comes to conclusion, it should be very clear, and what should be avoided, we are discussing on that. Again, avoid the repetition. It has been repeated. Avoid overuse complex jargon, any technical information, technical terms, anything which you don't, which should not be there, anything which is, like little confusing, and people are not able to understand what exactly they were talking about, they were studying about, and they wanted to search, and because of that they have opened your work and publication, and they did not find whatever they were expecting from the right. Basically, do not overuse any complex jargon, technical terms, and again, simply do not repeat the introduction. So, by unclear connection with the introduction, and also, basically, it should not repeat the introduction, but it should not have no connection with the introduction. It should be clear connection, because ultimately they are talking introduction and conclusion about the same title. And do not simply reiterate their results or the discussion, because we have already done the results part and findings part and the discussion part. Don't be overly dramatic and sensationalize the claims. Briefly acknowledging the negative results or unexpected finding, so it can help you to be honest about it. And do not ignore the facts and the evidences. Okay. So when it comes to various do's and don'ts, so you can avoid these pitfalls, and you can craft a strong, persuasive, and memorable conclusion that effectively summarize your research. It also emphasizes its significance and leaves a lasting positive impression on the reader. So if we talk about the characteristics of an effective conclusion, so simple, it should be generic. Just a second. Yeah, it should be generic. It should it should not it should not be generic. It should not contain new information. It should not engage in ideal discussion and apologizes instead of addressing the weakness of the research. It should not be there. And emotional instead of analytical. No, it should be analytical. It should be specific. It should not contain any new information, and it should stuck to the main part of the study, and it should address the strength of the research. So basically, good conclusion starts with a summary and as a result in a nutshell or the whole. So what exactly it can be a well crafted conclusion where it is summarizing the research and reaffirms its importance. So you have what now, I have talked about do's and don'ts, what should be included, what should not be included. So basically, you have to mention here the brief, what exactly you should mention, what should be there in the conclusion. If not this, then what? So basically, brief overview and significance of this study. Okay. Number two, mention importance of this study and describing how to apply their findings to the real world. Offer the suggestions and the recommendations for relevant future studies without introducing new information. Share the ideas for the future research study. As I have said in the conclusion, we have already discussed in the first lecture about the future research scope. So when we are writing about the future research scope in the conclusion, every study have this. So from that you can take idea what has been done and what did not, what is still left for the study, and you can take the help for your own study. So future research scope again should be there. Do mention the limitations of your study and also discuss their implication, and conclude your thoughts with or concluding statement should be there. So there are four things which I have said in the beginning: suggestions and recommendations, future research scope, limitations of the study, and implications of the study. Implications for the society, the employer, the employee, the researchers, anyone who is connected with that particular study. So it should create a clear sense of closure. Also, it should address, as I have mentioned, limitations, suggestion, future research, and implication for the. It should suggest areas for the further investigation or unanswered questions that are emerged by the study. So now, how to write the conclusion? How, what can be the steps? So there is nothing like steps or anything, but yeah, you should always have this in your mind. What should be there when it comes to writing a conclusion? So what can be included? What should be included? And what can help basically the reader to understand about your studies? Summing up. So basically, how it can be work as. So, how when it comes to how to write the conclusion, so restating the problem statement, as I have said, then discuss the main findings critically, then implication, practice, policy, and the theory, shortcomings, limitations, then what has been learned and can be taken for the future research. So, you have to wrap up your ideas, you have to summarize the last thoughts and answer the questions. So what? Like, this should be answered, that what, like, now what, so what, and also the significance of the study should be mentioned in the work. So all these sections should be included when we are writing about the conclusion. So steps can be this. So a brief summary of main points of the essay is the conclusion. Considered answer to the question, recommendations, implications, or and predictions, areas for the future research, a final strong or a strong final statement, and up to 10% of total length of assignment you can write as the conclusion. I'll be discussing about the length of the conclusion later on. Also, it should provide the solutions, whatever you were seeking for, whatever your research problem was saying, and also it should provide the reference to the sources. There is one more thing I would like to uh, the purpose of the conclusion. One is summarizing the key points so you can recap the main findings and essential aspects of your research. Second one, when it comes to reinforcing the significance, it emphasizes the importance of your study and outcomes in the broader context. Call to action or the future direction. When it comes to conclusions, what is it tries to or try to provide you the future direction, how to do and what can be done. So prompt further discussion, suggest actions, and propose the avenues for the future research. And when it comes to leave a lasting impression, so you have to ensure a reader is impacted by your paper's key insights. leaves the lasting impression basically when it ensure that reader is having the impact on any of the key insights. So exactly what to do: you have to answer or restate the research questions. You have to summarize and reflect on the research key findings. How well the results match the expectations and why it took that particular approach. And you have also need to make recommendations and suggestions based on the conclusion. You have to emphasize your contribution and you have to wrap up the work. See, what topic I am taking today is not having any particular length, a long thing, because it's all about a smaller part we are talking about. There is one more thing before I start this, that good conclusion starter. In the beginning, I have said one of the slide that it should not have, in the last point you can see, we have to avoid the phrases such as in summary, in conclusion, we can see. Then what? So basically, you can write as a result. This study reveals, in a nutshell, you can use such kind of terms. So you can use such kind of starters when it comes to a conclusion. Now let's talk about the length of the conclusion. So this is again a very important part of the study where people talk about it. So and they think about it, that what should be the length of the conclusion. So it also depends with the type of document you are preparing. Still, let's talk about some. So while there is a no hard and fast rule on the length, and the conclusion are typically one paragraph long, however, you may find some that are two or three paragraph long. That's more than enough, because the length of the conclusion varies, but it is generally recommended to be concise. Aim for rounding or around 5 to 7 sentences, or roughly 10% of the total research length for a particular research paper. Or you can say 5 to 7% of the total word count. So in general guidelines, if we talk about 5 to 10% of the paper's total length, so this is a common recommendation, meaning if your paper is 10 pages long, you can write your conclusion might be roughly a half or one page, not more than that. And for the shorter paper, the conclusion could be a single paragraph. That's more than enough. So because we have already written a lot in other parts of the paper, then what kind of factors influencing any particular length? So let me talk about that also. If we talk about any length of the paper, so obviously longer paper with more complex arguments and analysis naturally have a longer conclusion to summarize effectively. But in general, it should be shorter. If we talk about the complexity of the research, so if your research involves multiple variables, conflicting evidences, and you may need a longer conclusion to adequately address it. If we talk about the type of the research you are preparing, so it can be an argumentative essay, it can be a literature review, empirical study, and that will influence the appropriate length of your conclusion. So the parts of the research paper can be introduction, methods, results, and discussion and conclusion. So if we see this particular model, so again, introduction and discussion or conclusion should have almost equal length, but introduction can be little detailed. And because the body is again having various parts, so again, the conclusion should not be that detailed. So we can see a shape. It's kind beginning and the end should have almost the same kind of length. So introduction start at the broadest point necessary to understand topic and funnels down to your research. When it comes to discussion and conclusion, it is start at your research and opens up to the field and broader scientific community. So your research, particularly having the figures in the middle, material and methods and results in the middle of the paper. So it's the body of your study. But when it comes to introduction, and when it comes to introduction, it talks about the broadest point, and in discussion or conclusion, it start your research and open up to the everyone. So if we talk about the concise and comprehensive, so regardless of the length, the conclusion should always be concise and clear. Also, it should avoid unnecessary details or rambling the statements. It focuses on reiterating your main points. Also, demonstrating the significance of the study. So basically the type of research paper, the nature of research paper, all these things, which kind of topic you are taking, how much content is available on that, how much work has been done. If it is a new topic, new added topic in the study, so is it possible to concise it in a smaller way, and is it possible to have it in a smaller section of the conclusion? So this is all up to the type of paper, the types of research, any length of the paper, how big it is, if you're targeting any particular conference or something, in that case what kind of pattern they are following. Sometimes they give you the templates so that you can work on that, and only that much is required for the particular study. So now let's talk about the tips of the conclusion writing. First of all, you have to provide a concise recap of your main research outcomes. Then remind the readers to your research goals and their accomplishments. It should also stick to summarize existing content and refrain from adding new details, emphasizing why your research matters and the broader implications. So you should also answer that how and why your study is also providing in any important uplifting for the research. So basically, you have to remind the readers that the research goals and their accomplishment, how much is done. Strictly summarizing the existing content, and you should not use any new content. Emphasize why your research matters and its broader implications, how broadly it is going to help others. Then clearly explain the practical and the theoretical impact of your findings. And then prompts readers to reflect on how your research influences to their perspective. You should also make this people researcher feel that the hard work they have done, whatever they have done, is this really payable? I mean, are you really getting something in return? Not monetary, then non-monetary can be there. So briefly discuss the robustness of the research methods. Then end with a suggestion for the future research or a practical application. So again, as I've said, there should be suggestion, future research, any practical implications of this study. It transparently addresses any constraint or biases in your study. So addressing the any kind of constraint or any bias in your study. So it is basically having, like basically I have said in the beginning that if there is any glitch, if there is any problem, is there any problem occurred or any challenges faced by you, any constraint are there, anything which you have felt in between that, yeah, that's which affected your study, you should transparently address in this. So whenever you are avoiding some things which are not required, you should focus on always those points which are key results or key points or KRAs of the studies basically. So end with a powerful note and leave a memorable impression on your readers. So this is very much important to understand. So you can write a conclusion that effectively wraps up your arguments, emphasizing the significance of the research, and again, it can last the impression on the readers. Now let's talk about the effective writing tips on the conclusion, especially when it comes to research writing. So you have to use a reflective and analytical tone. It should not be very general. Avoid introducing new concept of data. I have already said. Be concise but impactful. So you usually 1 to 2 paragraph, and end on a strong note and show why the research matters to them. Address the limitation and recommended future research. So there can be so many things which can be included in the conclusion. So again, whenever you are writing any conclusion, so again there is one more thing, that you should keep it concise and clear, and you should aim to you have to ensure that the conclusion effectively wraps up your significance. Also, you have to ensure the clarity and the accuracy of the research, and make sure that you are not just uh, writing it on the purpose of because you have to write it, but yes, you are also clearly summarizing your study. So if there is any weakness, there is any point which needs to be answered, so it should be there. So if we talk about a general template of a research conclusion, so restate the research aim or a problem, then summarize the key findings, highlight the significance, acknowledge the limitation, suggest the direction for the future research, and end with a concluding thought. So the research should identify the relevant ways and strategies to finish it, and basically based on the provided information, it should be clearly stated that what is research aimed at. So whether you are summarizing the key findings or contribution of the research towards the society or any other part of the society, it should have a clear understanding on the conclusion. It should clearly, aim at conclusion. So the last part of something, we call it conclusion. It is the end result, and basically it can be a reasoned judgment. It can be a necessary consequences. It can be a part of last part of something. Any kind of trial which you have done and you have come up with the final decision, any particular end. So this is all about conclusion. So conclusion can give you lots of ideas. So if we talk about importance of conclusion in a research paper or a research thesis, so what happens when it comes to any particular part of the research paper uh, which is in the end, but it is the most important because ultimately it is going to talk about very important parts of his study. So, first one is summarizing the research. So, it provides a brief recap of your research problem, objectives, and the findings. And it helps reader to remember what the study was all about and without rereading the whole paper. Means you don't need to read from the beginning till this end. You just read the conclusion and you will get to know. Number two, answering the research question. It should clearly state whether and how the research question or hypothesis has been addressed, and it connects the finding back to the purpose of the study. So I'm just summarizing it last. Highlights the contribution. So it shows the significance of your findings and explains how the study adds to the existing body and the practice. The next one is acknowledging the limitations. So demonstrating how honestly and academic integrity by admitting the study could not cover and also encourage the further research where it opens the possibility for the future studies and helps other researchers to understand whether your work fits into the bigger picture or not. So basically, when we are coming to the end, we will also understand that what is still left and what can be the possibilities for the future research. So it provides a concise overview of the principal outcome that directly addresses your research aim and focuses only on the most significant results, and also avoids the duplication and the detailed analysis from the earlier chapters. It should leave a lasting impression where a well crafted conclusion can make a research memorable and reinforces the relevance, and it also impacts your work. And also, you should briefly reflect on the limitations of a study. When it comes to limitation, I would like to focus on this point again, that when we acknowledge the limitations, so we generally demonstrate the academic integrity by admitting if something could not be covered. So we should also mention such as sample size, any particular time framework, any methodology, any scope which you have could not do without undermining your work. So this demonstrate reflexibility and the academic credibility. Also, it suggests realistic, meaningful direction that future researchers can pursue, and ideally tied to the limitation you have identified or unexpected yet noteworthy for the findings. So basically, uh, whenever we are concluding or closing the final statement, it should have a powerful concluding message. So it should have also have a provoking insight so that people can also go for more researches in this particular direction. So again, if we talk about the length, it should be smaller, 5 to 7% of the thesis or the work. It should also introduce, it should not introduce new data. It should use polished and professional language throughout, and uh, also reflect now answer of the so what on the findings. So if we talk about the final thought of the conclusion, so a strong conclusion does not end the paper, it elevates it. Basically, whenever you are writing any conclusion, whether it is about the research paper, or a research paper or a thesis, and any dissertation, any master thesis, so it is not that different, but yeah, it might be about all about size of the pattern and everything. But it also gives various sections. So research paper sections or the thesis should have almost same type of pattern which we follow. It's all about the things which you are highlighting. So it is just all about difference. That if we talk about the research paper conclusion, so it usually having a 1 or 2 paragraph. But in case of any thesis or dissertations, it can be as obviously it we work it as a full chapter, so it can be extensive. It if it is not brief, but it can be extensive. So next, if we talk about the purpose of a research paper, it also summarizes the findings and implications. But when it comes to thesis, you should also write the discussion, limitation, and future research scope in the same if you are skipping it in the research paper. Again, if we talk about the depth, so when it comes to research paper conclusion, so it is having focused on key results. But when it comes to conclusion of any dissertation or thesis, so it is comprehensive and overview. It's a comprehensive overview and including the methodology as well as the contributions. And also when it comes to recommendations in the research paper, it is optional. If you don't want to write, you can skip it. It should be brief. But when it comes to recommendation in the thesis, so it should be detailed, and it is an integral part of the conclusion. You cannot skip it. And uh, basically, while both the conclusion into any particular research is in a sense, a thesis or dissertation conclusion is deeper comparative to research paper and extensive in nature. So this is all from my side about the conclusion. Actually, this is a particular topic which is very small, not be discussed so much, but yes, I think I have covered all the points in this. So if anybody is having any doubt and want to ask about any of the point, if they are into the research work or something, so they can ask me any of the questions if they are interested and they are having any doubts. If somebody cannot speak in verbal, then they can also write in the in the chat box, and I'm open for the question answer session. If anybody is having any doubt, if they are pursuing any research, any particular research paper, or they are writing any research paper or doing any thesis work or something like that, they can ask me if they are having any doubts about it. I tried to cover each and everything, whatever I could. Any questions? Is there any question, anyone? I hope you understood. Somebody has written, ma'am, how many reference books links should be there? You are talking about the references, Sucheta ma'am? I was talking about the conclusion and how many reference books you are talking about referencing or what? So, ma'am, again, I was taking the lecture on conclusion, so you can listen to the lecture of in referencing for the same. But in general, as many as see, it depends on the different guides also. Sometimes we prepare the paper for the purpose of like we prepare a research paper and we write as many as reviews we can get. Sometimes people think that there should not be so many reviews. If it is a properly review paper, so obviously you can include so many references. But if it is a general paper, so you can include 20-25 papers at least you should read when it comes to research paper writing and related to referencing. But when it comes to thesis writing, you should try to read as many as you can, because it is a comprehensive study, and as deeper you will go, you will get the proper relevance of your study, and you can see what can be your research problem, and what you can identify by setting up your objectives. Any other question? Neha ma'am, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. So can we conclude, ma'am?
Yeah, ma'am. So I am done from my side. If somebody is having any questions, I am open for the question answer session.
Yes, participants, do you have any questions? Any participant? Okay, so as we come to the end of this commendable and remarkable endless faculty development program on advanced tools and techniques for research methodology, we would like to express our deepest gratitude to all our participants. Your active involvement and contributions have been truly valuable, and our sincere thanks go to our distinguished session expert, Dr. Kunal Suri sir, Dr. Shrishti Chabra sir, Dr. Ranjana ma'am, and Dr. Ankita ma'am for their invaluable time and the wealth of knowledge they have shared with us. We extend our heartfelt thanks to the organizing committee of Resource Foundation of India and RFI-CARE, as well as to our esteemed collaborators, Parul University, Shod Malwa, A Club University, JHRF Academic Research Site Association, and Edu Academic for their unwavering support. So, with profound appreciation for everyone's dedication and involvement, we officially conclude this program, and we look forward to welcoming you all again in future sessions where we will explore even more intellectually stimulating topics. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ankita ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank
Thank
you.
you, ma'am. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.